Now we're into intimacy because our social health, relationships, all those things, they can be both a joy and a joy stiller. Welcome to Journey to Joy Live, a podcast to promote wellness, resilience, and joy while providing mental health awareness and breaking down the stigma of mental illness in the Black community. I'm your host, Dr. Enjoy, and today I bring to you episode 66, Intimacy Matters, Deepening Connection for Social Health. And this is the fifth crucial health area of the Inspire Joy series. There are five, and then we will get into the two foundational core foundations, resilience and empowerment. So we've already done the first I in Inspire, which was integrity, N for nurture, our physical health, S for stability, our financial health, P for purpose, our aspirational health. And now our second I in Inspire is intimacy, delving into our social health because that is important. And there's a reason why integrity comes first. If you remember during integrity, we talked about unpacking our mental baggage and being able to reframe our thoughts and how we think, because everything starts with how we think. The world that we can create in our minds about what could be going on, about what someone else said to us, and how we interpret things, the bias that our trauma may give us about how we perceive things that happen to us and happen around us definitely affects us greatly and affects our mental health greatly. So that's why we talk about integrity first, because being able to know how to change your thoughts from negative thoughts to positive thoughts, knowing how to recognize your automatic thoughts and those thought traps that might be leading you down the wrong thought road is really important. And of course, integrity, we talked about emotional regulation, cultivating gratitude, and of course, being able to get through those traumas. All of that is important before we get to our social health. You not knowing who you are, you not having that integrity and being able to be your true self, being able to clear your mind of mental clutter, that impacts your relationships, right? No matter if you want to be in a relationship, and I'm talking all relationships, I'm not talking about dating relationships, just those. I'm talking about parenting relationships, I'm talking about working relationships, friendships, um, being a daughter, being a son, right? So those kinds of relationships, any kind of relationship you may encounter, you're not on this world by yourself. So you have to know how to be in a relationship, and knowing yourself and having that integrity and having that mental strength is very crucial before being able to have successful, healthy relationships. So that is why that is first in the enjoyno. Please work on yourself, work on your thoughts. I mean, of course, we're doing these kind of things simultaneously. I mean, you definitely want to be able to have successful relationships while you're working on this at the same time. But hey, if it's too much to work on at the same time, at least start with yourself, start with your integrity. But anyhow, we got through the integrity, we got through nurture, we got through stability, and we did purpose last week. Now we're into intimacy because our social health, relationships, all those things, they can be both a joy and a joy stiller. I talk about joy stillers and stressors in the enjoyno a lot. And you know, the word stress pretty much covers a lot of different things that we could be experiencing in life. Stress can have to do with toxic relationships, stress can have to do with work issues or financial issues or mental illness. So I use the word stress just to kind of clump in all of what's going on. But anyhow, when it comes to relationships, that can be a stress. It can be a joy stiller, something that just takes your joy from you. But relationships can also give you joy. And there's obviously lots of benefits from relationships. Again, we're not in this world by ourselves. So we have to be able to know how to be in relationships and have healthy relationships. Because on the flip side of those relationships giving us joy, they can also give us stress, and they can give us make our mental health a lot worse and increase anxiety, increase depression, lead to Peer pressure lead to addiction, relapse. There's a lot of different things that our social relationships can do. So I was hoping to talk about different kinds: working relationships, parenting, marriage, maybe hit on some dating. Of course, I'm in the marriage stage, so. And then also, I think that was it. There was, oh, friendships, right? But let me start with working relationships. Working relationships seem to be easier, air quotes, because of course they're not easy. But for some reason, we are more professional and we have more emotional regulation when it comes to our working relationships. Why is that? Is it because it's tied to our money? Like, oh, well, I get paid to be professional in this arena and with this person, so I'm not going to cuss them out even though I want to. But then when we go home, then we might cuss somebody out that, be yelling at a child or taking it out on our spouse. Why is that? Why do we have more control at work as opposed to at home? We need to think about that. And some people might say, well, it's because I'm more vulnerable around my spouse. I'm more vulnerable around my kids. I'm able to be myself. Well, it's good to be able to be yourself. No one's saying that you shouldn't, let out what's going on or vent. But venting is different from actually taking it out on them. If you're stressed about something at work, there's still some control that you should have when it comes to bringing that home to your spouse and to your kids. So, that same control that you have at work, we still need to funnel that so that we're not taking it out on our kids if you are stressed at work. And usually, when we're at work, we're really good at empathy. We're really good at seeing the other side and being able to calm ourselves, have that emotional regulation so that whatever is going on, we're not cussing out that boss or that person that we work with. And it really goes back to emotional intelligence. The four components of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, knowing yourself, emotional regulation, empathy, and social skills. But we talk about that around the workplace. We need those components in every relationship. Use whatever control you have in that working relationship and bring it to your personal relationships. Now, if you're that person where you're like, well, I don't have control of my working relationships either. I just cuss the person out. And guess what? You don't have a job and you're going from job to job. So we need to focus on that emotional intelligence as well with you if you're that person that's cussing people out at work. But think about that. Look it up. Emotional intelligence, empathy, self-awareness, emotional regulation, and social skills. It's definitely very important to have when you are dealing with other people. Now, even when it is stressful, that's why that self awareness is important, and the self care and being able to give into yourself first before dealing with other people. And the best time to do that is the first thing in the morning. Is being able to give to yourself so that you can conquer the world and conquer the people that you have to deal with throughout the day. Personal time, personal relationships, and your working relationships. So that's why self care is so important, because then you recharge your battery so that you can be able to deal with other people. And relationships can increase resilience when you're able to work on yourself. And I keep saying the word work. That's because these things are work. I mentioned in the past, joy is work. It takes work to be able to enter the journey to joy. It takes work to be able to experience joy. It takes work to be able to think positively, to be able to have gratitude, to be able to have these things. So if we're thinking that a healthy relationship is just going to fall on us, that's not how it works. We have to work for it. And so, with that self awareness and working on yourself and having that self care, you're thinking about, what can I change? Do I need more patience in my relationships? Do I need to think before I talk? Do I need to think before I act? Do I need to walk away before saying the wrong thing that I can't take back? It takes two to tango. We say that all the time. So, of course, it's not all on you, but what can you change? Because you're the only one that can control you. And in the relationship, you're the only one that you can change. So, what is it that you can change about a particular relationship? So, that was working relationships, parenting, parenting. I mean, that is just at the forefront for me, because of course I'm a parent of three boys, 1, 3, and 13. In fact, my 7 p.m. flyer for my podcast is just a suggestion because clearly I'm not always here at 7 because, well, my parenting is a priority over the podcast. And that is like literally an example of how parenting relationships, the skills that you need to have, what you prioritize. I have noticed that I'm more frustrated with parenting when I'm trying to do something else that's not parenting. So if I'm like, okay, let me hurry up and get to this podcast. Let me hurry up and oh no, why do I have to take care of this kid when I have to go to the podcast? Why do I have to take care of this kid for another example when I really want to watch this game or I really want to go get my nails done? I really want to go do this. So that's the issue, right? If you're prioritizing, okay, how about I take care of the kids first? How about I get the kids to bed first? And then lessen the importance of that thing you want to do. So for me, it's like, oh, I don't have to go live at 7. I can go live at 7:30. I can go live whenever I want to. Then it's like, okay, why am I stressing on this? Why don't I relax? And why don't I get the kids to bed first? So that's true with a lot of things. And I was talking with one of the docs on an earlier podcast earlier this year, and we were talking about parenting challenges. And that's exactly what we were saying. It's just like if you're trying to do something else and you're not giving your full attention to the kids, you are more inclined to be more stressed out or annoyed by the kids when they want your attention. So if the kids are around, try your best to devote your attention to them so that, hey, that lessens your stress. So that work email can wait until they're doing something else and then you do work. So it's about the priorities that you do. But at the same time, as I mentioned on an earlier podcast, parenting takes 100% patience, but about 50% sacrifice. So you're not going to sacrifice everything, which is why you have to schedule in when you get to do things without the kids and when you do things with the kids. Because, of course, parenting, like any relationship, is a joy, but it also can be a joy stiller. So it's a matter of taking care of ourselves and prioritizing that so that we can give what we can give to our kids so that they are not a stressor. What else can I say about parenting? Because it's for sure can weigh in on our mental health for sure. But in general, bringing in that emotional intelligence that you have at work, when you think about that empathy, active listening. So that works with our spouses in marriage, it works in dating, it works at home, it works with our parenting skills. Actively listening. So if someone feels like you're not there for them, you're not actively listening to them, then that can strain the relationship. That can especially strain the relationship with a child because then now they're nagging on you because you're not listening to them. So that is critical to all types of relationships in order to foster deepened connections so that you are there for them and that you are listening and fostering that relationship. So with parenting, being there with them 100% of the time, giving your attention, and then of course setting the boundaries. So that goes back to that 50% sacrifice. There are some boundaries you need to set for them so that they are doing things independently, that they are safe, structured environments, whatever it is, so that you are able to get away and do your self-care and that they are able to be independently growing. So that's important. And just like trying your best to model healthy relationships is good for being a parent and being able to reduce the stress of parenting because once they see you doing something and they do it too, then it's kind of like, oh, do as I say, not as I do. But that is not how parenting works. They are sponges and they soak up whatever is around them. So having that control as best as you can is very important because they are watching and they are looking at you. So going to marriage relationships, dating relationships, that can be stressful. It seems like so long ago when I was dating or before I was married, but I do recognize that's still a thing Of course, it still exists. I'm looking at shows like Love is Blind and what's the other one? Well, basically, Love is Blind. Can't wait to watch the new episodes. Anyway, and I'm just like, it's hard out here. Oh, the radio. I listen to the first date updates on the radio, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like the type of things that are going on. I say people are just going to be single forever because the way people ghost, they'll call them and they'll be like, oh, the reason why I didn't want to call them back is because they were too hot or because they smiled wrong at this person. I'm like, people are so hard on people. So when it comes to your social health and your relationships and with dating, what is a criteria you can just give up? Like, we are so hard on ourselves because we have this like huge list of criteria that we need in this person that we're looking for, but you're just like lessening your ability to even find someone. Case in point, I had the longest list of what I needed in a husband, and that part of that list was I didn't want a man that had a kid. Hmm, interesting, because I ended up marrying someone with a kid. So if I kept that as a criteria that I did not want in my man or someone I dated, guess who wouldn't be married? Interesting. So dating can be hard, but think about your list. You really have to have a list. And I'm really talking to the women because most of the time it's the women that have that list that there's certain person that they need to be with. And the men are just pretty simple. They're just like out here, like, I just want a woman who I can trust and I can communicate with. That's how they feel. But us women, we got to have this long list. But I literally remember like a couple, like just 1 month before I met my husband, listening to a video that was talking about that, how you just need to lessen your criteria. And I was just like, okay, obviously you still have self-worth and self-respect. So you don't want to lessen your criteria too much, but you still want to lessen it to the point where you're not limiting yourself. There was this funny reel I watched the other day about how women date, where there was a man and he it was like he was a doctor. He had like two um, PhD and a medical degree, and he rescued cats, and he was like absolutely amazing. And then all the girls were like, and of course it was a guy playing like he was a girl, but all the girls were like, "How tall is he?" And they're like, "Oh, he's 5'7". They're like, "Oh no, we don't want him." Like he had all this amazing criteria, but they didn't want him because he was 5'7". And the next guy was just as amazing and did all these great things. How tall is he? Oh, he's a 5'8". Oh no, we don't want him. And then the last guy, they're like, oh, he has like 3 felonies and he has 5 baby mamas and 4 kids or some crazy thing like that. And they're like, oh, how tall is he? And he stands up and he's 6'3". And they're like, oh, we want him. That's how we are as women. It's like frivolous things. It's like, oh, come on. So seriously, single woman out there, if you are having a hard time dating, what are some things you can knock off your list? Come on now. It's something. You got that list of 20 people, 20 criteria on your list that you need. But think about the most important things and what could be limiting you in dating. So that's my spiel on dating because it's frustrating. I know I was doing online dating, I was doing all kinds of things back then, and it was very frustrating. But thriving while waiting and thriving while you're in that dating relationships or even while you're single. Hey, Jessica. Uh-oh, I wasn't talking about you, but thanks. Oh, that's so funny. Um, it was a book called Thrive, and the idea behind that book called Thrive is that you're not just waiting for your mate or your spouse or your person. I guess that's a new thing they say. I'm waiting for my person, the one. You're not just waiting, you're thriving. So what can you be doing now to enjoy your life while you're single? Because trust me, what did I just say? Relationships are work. So what can you do on your own right now? I know I travel, I did all kinds of things. I enjoyed my singlehood, and I'm enjoying the parenting hood and the marriage hood. But I'm just saying, there comes a point where when once you get married, you're not gonna have all the time to do all those things that you can do right now. So thriving while single is important. All right, let's transition into marriage because it is work. We were just at a marriage conference last week at our church, and it was just really nice being around married couples. So that's definitely one thing you need to do is be around other married couples who are trying to do the same thing. And the same thing is having a successful marriage. And that was one of the things that our pastor said. It's the Faith Center. He said that you all need to go in with a goal, and that goal is having a successful marriage. Like, if you literally are having positive thoughts about your marriage, what are you going to do? Have a positive, healthy marriage. But if you're going into this thing like, oh man, it's hard, and thinking negative about it, what's going to happen? It's the same thing when you have positive affirmations about yourself, when we're talking about our thoughts, right? Changing our thoughts from negative thoughts to positive thoughts about yourself. We also have to do that about our relationships and about our marriages, whether it's jobs or parenting, but marriage is what I'm talking about right now. So have those positive thoughts, and of course, what can you do to add to the richness and the success of your marriage? Usually, it takes really good communication. It takes growth. It takes patience. It takes lessening you, kind of like, well, selflessness. That's what lessening you is. That's being selfless. You obviously want to maintain yourself, right? So you want to be able to have your self care and be yourself, but then there's a lot of growth that comes out of marriage as well. And so being open to that and open to those changes. I know I definitely have developed a lot of patience and growth over the years, and my spouse has too. So, we grow together and it's amazing. But there's obviously times where it's not as amazing. But a good marriage has more amazing moments than it does less than amazing moments. That's all you stay married. But then also going into marriage, that divorce isn't an option because people are getting divorced left and right. Like, oh, okay, we had this argument. Let's just get divorced. What? Come on. Is it because it's work? It's too much work? It's too much work to just say sorry? Why can't you say sorry? Look into yourself. What happened to you in your childhood? It's going back to that trauma that I said that we need to work on before being able to cultivate healthy relationships. What happened to you where you can't say sorry? Are you feeling like it's too much for you to be vulnerable? Or when you say sorry, the person threw everything up in your face and blamed you for everything? What happened where you can't say sorry? Because usually being able to take responsibility for your actions or understand where the person's coming from, because maybe there isn't something that went wrong, but it's just understanding where they're coming from. And that's another thing that came out of that marriage conference. It's not about being right or wrong. It's just about understanding your spouse and being able to connect with them. Now, getting into, and I got all the way 20 minutes into this episode and have not showed you this chapter, intimacy and joy. So we have our lovely female. And it is definitely important for us to get into this chapter. I have a mindfulness moment in this chapter as well that helps you with your partner and with reflective listening and communication, because it's, we be ready to, like, what's the next thing we want to say rather than just actually listening to the other person. So that's important to practice too with your spouse or with someone where you feel like you're not doing a good job actively listening. So in this chapter, strengthening bonds, one conversation at a time. Who are the most important people in your life right now, and why do they hold significance? So thinking about those relationships that matter. And so sometimes we feel like we don't have those good relationships. And if we don't have those good relationships, that makes us feel lonely, makes us feel depressed, makes us feel stressed. But there are some important relationships that you may have had. Maybe the person's gone, maybe they have passed away, or maybe it was a relationship that you had, but you guys aren't talking and it's been years and you don't want to pick up the phone because of something. Why don't you want to pick up the phone? It's okay. You can pick up the phone and call that person and say sorry or say what happened. I don't understand what happened. Why haven't we been talking? Sometimes we just need to just say, it's okay. We can get through it and we can get over it. But what is an important relationship in your life right now that you feel like has you have lost, or that it's just been on a large pause, or a sister that you may not have spoken to in years, a parent you may not have spoken to in years, a child you may not have spoken to in years. What is stopping you from picking up the phone and calling them? That's your homework. Call that person. Is somebody listening? Is somebody? Assess your relationship satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10. How satisfied am I with my level of intimacy and connection in my relationships? Again, in here, I'm not talking about just romantic relationships, but the intimacy and the connection that you might have with someone. A best friend. Oh, I used to talk to her every day, but now we don't talk because of blah, 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 blah. And oh, we just text. Pick up that phone. A lot of different friendships are just long distance. I know my longest relationships are long distance. My BFF who's watching right now, she long distance. My sister long distance. My longest relationship, I known that girl since fourth grade. She long distance. I've got some good friendships that I've started in Atlanta, of course, and there's some good relationships, but I'm just saying, like, the longest ones, a lot of people haven't they just don't live in the same city. So pick up the phone, do a video call. I need to do that too. We were just talking about that, how we need to do more video calls. We did that. Was that today? I don't know. Time. Express gratitude and appreciation. Write a letter or a message expressing that gratitude to a person and send it to them. There was a amount of time that went by that every time my 13-year-old left the house, I said, tell somebody a compliment today, because it is just nice to be nice to people. So, boundaries. I wanted to make sure I got into that because in relationships, we need to make sure we are able to express our boundaries, any type of boundaries that we need, especially with work. And I mean, whether you work from home or work out of an office or your salary, so you feel like you always need to be on the clock, expressing those boundaries are important. I know last night I got a phone call from someone who I supervise, and I was cooking. And usually I answer the phone when they call because I do like to be approachable and accessible to people that I supervise. But then I said, well, wait a minute, boundaries. I didn't answer the phone. And for my private practice, I see those emails. I turn off the notifications for my other job, but I see the emails that come through for my private practice because it just comes through on Google. And I used to be that when I see it, I have to respond. Oh. But no, I've learned. I'm said, nope, can't respond. Boundaries. So those are working relationships, but there are sometimes boundaries that we need in our personal relationships too. And being able to communicate that is very important. How do we even get to that point? That is why the integrity is so huge. Our mental resilience, our emotional regulations is very important because once you have that and you are able to have that confidence, that gratitude, getting past your previous traumas, and you're able to say, yeah, I got self love, I have self compassion, I have the self worth, and I deserve to be able to activate my boundaries. And I'll talk more about boundaries when we do empowerment. So for the I and inspire intimacy, that's the fifth health area. Next week and the week after will be resilience and then empowerment. So those are huge. I'm sure I will cover more of the health areas in that, but having resilience is super important to have that mindset of being able to change how you perceive a challenge. And that mindset is also important in our social health. Changing that, well, relationships just aren't easy and that that's okay. And that I'm willing to do the work to grow in however way I need to in order to strengthen relationships. So, what do you need to do to strengthen a certain relationship right now, whether it's a parenting relationship, a work relationship, or a personal relationship? What do you need to do? and make sure you do it and pick up that phone and call that person that you haven't spoken to in a long time and let me know. Send me a DM or a comment and let me know how it went when you called that person. Okay, I can talk forever on this. Try to keep it to about 30 minutes. I'm at that mark. Thank you for listening. Come out to Atlanta. October 19th from 2 to 4 at Studio House Atlanta. It's getting big. It's not just a book signing. I'm going to be there signing books, but I'm bringing the Enjoyno to life. So we're talking about Inspire. I'm going to have some experts there inside the integrity. How can you increase your mental health, as well as experts there for nurture, the physical health, the financial health. Yes, because I am not a financial expert. And yes, I have a financial coach, and we'll have people in the other areas. So, yeah, it's a whole wellness event, vendors with giveaways and things like that. You don't want to miss out. And plus, you get your Enjoyno signed. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a great week.